That's one of the things.
We need to hide those Teams pop-ups. Yes. Just hit quit. Yeah, we don't want that coming up.
So we are being recorded.
All right, recording is on.
I'm just gonna teach us boys. Hello. Hello. Thank you guys. Welcome. Welcome to June 26th RTP meeting, and we have no one that needs to be accepted for virtual today, so that's we can move on to introductions with that. And Garland, of course, I'm looking at my left.
Garland Williams, Cat.
Nick Bilkowski, John. Mike Clifford, John.
Andy Parker, Rural John Representative.
And Chambers, City of Charlottesville.
Katie Miller, DRPT.
Peter Thompson, Charlottesville Area Alliance.
I'm from McKeel, Albemarle County.
Natalie Oshman, Charlottesville City Council.
Allison Day, UVA UTS, and I'm subbing in for Scott today.
I like your choice of jacket better than his.
I'll tell him that.
Yeah.
I'm Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council.
Taylor Jenkins, TJPDC. Christine Jacobs, TJPDC.
Lucinda Shannon, TJPDC. And let's see, we usually,
Gretchen Thomas, TJPDC.
and look, I see a lot of people behind me, so let's go down the line.
All right, Jason S. with the job.
Sally Duncan, presumptive supervisor-elect, Jen Fleischer. Oh, did I say that too? Presumptive city councilor? No, actually, our city to be councilor, city of Charlottesville. But who are you talking about?
Carlos Benito, NDS intern.
So you have to move to Charlottesville.
You look for PGPs.
And I'm sorry, would you, if I didn't hear other people, would you say it again?
You look at, you know, PGPs.
There you go, thank you. Soft.
President.
That, I think we have everybody, don't we? All right, we do have a quorum. Lucinda has assured me that we have a quorum. And we have a need to approve our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? So Randy made the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Natalie made the second. Lucinda, would you call the vote, please?
Counselor Oshrin,
Yes.
Supervisor McKeel,
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt, Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Director Parker,
Yes.
Director Pilpowski,
Yes.
Directors Allison Dick,
Yes.
and that is all.
All right, we have an agenda. And then our next item of business is we have a set of draft meeting minutes, from April the 24th, which seems like a long time ago, but it is what it is. They were on the website, and then Lucinda sent them out today, and there are a few copies at the back table that anybody needs a copy to review. But if folks are ready, if there are no changes, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April the 24th.
So moved.
Natalie made the motion.
Now I have a second.
I'm looking at Randy. All right. Lucinda, would you call the roll please for us on that one?
Counselor Oshrin,
Yeah.
Supervisor McKeel,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Director Parker,
Yes.
Director Pilpowski,
Yes.
Allison Dick,
Yes.
All right. So we have our minutes approved. I will just add that Mike Pruitt is hoping to get here. He's afraid he's going to be a little bit late. And Brian didn't let us know that conflict. Matters from the public, 1 minute, 3 minutes per speaker, and Lucinda, do we have any?
There is, is there anybody in the room who would like to speak? And we have 2 people online, David from TJPDC and Sean Tubbs. Sean, would you like to speak? If so, raise your hand. Okay.
I don't see any hands.
Yeah.
Nope. All right, so we are on to, I think this is budget day. We're hearing from the transit providers and their budgets. So you, Garland, again, you go first. So I will turn it
I
on.
had the short straw.
You did.
I'm okay with
Shoot,
that.
Okay.
I didn't do, I forgot to load the presentations, I'm sorry.
Well, we have time to spare.
Bring it up on yours and share.
Is there someone?
Do you know any
if there's
jokes,
someone-
Garland? You know jokes, right?
Yeah, you gotta be.
Awesome jokes. He's a funny guy, I mean.
Well, Liz, if I can just move, let me just move the agenda around a turn. Perhaps Taylor Jenkins could give us a working group update while we're waiting.
Sure, I
Does
can do
that
that.
work?
Yes.
Garland? You're making too much noise. So Taylor is going to present the update for the Transit Authority working group.
Yes, I can share, yes. So at the March 27th CARTA board meeting, the board asked staff to go back and do some work to understand for other authorities around the state who are the non-voting directors or that type of representation at other authorities. So staff went back and we did some research, and then at their May meeting, we presented a staff memo and a recommendation for who those initial non-voting directors should be. And we recommended DRPT and UVA to be the first two, and then to fill the others at a later date once CARTA knows a little bit more about what their needs might be in the future. They did accept that recommendation, and so now staff are doing work kind of behind the scenes to have those conversations to figure out how to facilitate those invitations, and so we're making progress on that front. I also want to share that on Tuesday, the Commonwealth Transportation Board officially approved the VDOT and the DRPT 6-year budgets, and so that includes all of the applications that we put in for different programs, including one prioritization study that we applied for on behalf of CARTA to perform that prioritization study to get implementation, cost estimates, and prioritization done. So that was officially approved, and we have looked at the scope, we've revised that, and that should be being sent out to DRPT's bench here shortly. Those are the primary things that are going on. Ben, was there anything, Ben or Christine, that I missed that we could cover?
We did look at revising some bylaws as well, to make sure that the transit agencies would be able to participate in that.
Right.
Sorry, so the voting, the non-voting are DRPT and
UVA.
UVA, and the voting are.
City County.
So we have DRPT and UVA
Yes.
that have been approved as joining the CARTA.
Yes, the CARTA board has indicated that they would like to make those invitations. And so now we still need to have those conversations and work through the process for whether that's a letter, or a resolution from their bodies for how that would work, those invitations would work. But those are the two that CARTA has indicated.
And of course, we are hopeful, and I guess Christine could maybe speak to this better than I can, but we are hopeful that other surrounding counties at some point will be interested in this work as well. And we have reached out to them, but
We're doing continuing outreach with them.
that's exactly right. So, and we have, CARTA will be meeting in July.
Correct.
So what we'll do in July, after the July meeting, is make sure that this group gets the information from that meeting. We just have to, Christine, help me remember who said it, because I know this group is very interested. So we can send any documents that we find on those to. All right, sounds great. And did we give you enough time?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing we might want to mention about the last part meeting is we held it here instead of the smaller room.
Okay.
And we're going to continue holding it in this larger room. So if you'd like to join us, it is an open meeting. We have space to sit, sort of at the edges and see what's happening. We'd invite you to attend and see.
That's true, because we were having it in the smaller room and decided it was better in this larger room for the public if they wanted to join us.
Wait, it's Thursday, the 24th, from 5 to 7.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. So Garland, you're on.
Ready?
All right. We stalled long enough.
We stalled long enough. So, part of what is a requirement as a participant for the RTP is that the transit agencies report out.
So we selected right after our budgets were approved, we would be at the next meeting, which is now. The presentation I'm going to provide today, it just talks about our fixed route and the microtransit. It doesn't touch the school side of the house. That budget is really, I don't really have a whole lot of influence on that. That's between us and schools. They basically tell us what the numbers are, and then we kind of work backwards from there. But we're going to concentrate on the fixed route component and then our fixed route, our microtransit service right now. So overview, when I do this presentation, I kind of give people the lay of the land of CAT. So we have 42 fixed route buses right now. Be 43 tomorrow. We've got a new one that's on its way. And then that means we only will be one bus down. And that's a good thing. We will start with other replacements. We're going to be replacing up to 9 vehicles next fiscal year. So a lot going on at CAT, getting newer, which is a great thing. Micro transit side of the house, which is the MicroCat product. There's 8 vehicles. It's only operating in the county, as you know, right now, into specific areas, and we're going to talk about those. So for CAT purposes, we have 107 full-time employees, 66 of them are drivers, 8 supervisors, 4 customer service, 6 mechanics. We are increasing that number of mechanics by 1 starting July 1st. We are in the recruiting process as we speak. We have 6 bus cleaners, or we call them housers. They clean the buses, they fuel the buses. We have 1 required safety officer. FDA requires we have a safety person. And then we have 16 administrative staff, which includes me and the rest of the senior team. We have 30 authorized temporary or seasonal positions right now. 27 of them are driving positions, of which I think we have 4 of them filled at this point in time. 1 customer service rep, the temporary, there was actually a returning retiree, customer service rep, lead operator, and then an intern position that we have not filled. We will work through that. We don't have any space, so which is why we didn't do it this year. We are tapped out at CAT. Service areas, so 2 service maps, fixed route and microtransit or MicroCat. If you look at the MicroCat one first, been growing leaps and bounds. 2 huge zones, one the 29 corridor, and we're going to talk about kind of frequencies, popular destinations you can see there, Food Line, Target, Walmart, the schools. As we continue to open this up, the schools has become one of the major zones that attracts ridership. Our fixed route service, urban core of Albemarle County, and we blanket the city, of course. So for the fixed route side, we have 12 fixed route buses, fixed route routes. At this point in time, we're still operating fare free. And that is a decision that will have to come up again because this is the last year that we are technically required to, the city and the county are fully funding it, and that kind of completes our requirements with the state. I think it's been helpful, as you can see from our coverage and ridership numbers, we were at 1.8 million. Yes?
Sorry, just to clarify, was that the end of this fiscal year or calendar year?
This fiscal year ends the state funding. Next fiscal year, which we will be starting July 1st, is the last year that the city and the county have to pick up the cost. And then after that, there can be a decision about whether we return to collecting funds.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the clarification, because it does get confusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had 1.8 million riders, unlinked passenger trips in FY 2019. As you can see in 21, that was COVID year, we went down to 600,000. We started digging our way back out in 22. 23, kind of stagnant. 24, we're at 1.3, so we're starting to climb out of that. And we believe we're going to be at 1.4 or better at the end of FY 25. And Zoe's shaking her head back there, so our numbers are looking good. So, wanted to give you kind of a frequency table because this is kind of how we explain when we have conversations with groups and also with City Council about what we've been doing with the money that you've been providing us. So, our frequency tables are designed to allow us to show you what's going on. So, this is what the top one is. Fall 19 was when I first got here. This is right before COVID hit. Explain the colors to you. The tan color is 60-minute service frequency. The green is 30-minute service, and the 70-minute is something that we would never want to see again. That was the reddish color there. And then we had a 15-minute service, so it was green, which should have been a bluish color, but we'll work through that. We took an opportunity to study what was going on to our system. We started making some minor tweaks during a COVID period of time, and it started to get our frequencies more reliable because there was this helter-skelter. If you look at the 4 in the fall of 2019, it was a 23-minute headway, went to a 45-minute headway, to a 70-minute headway, to a 23-minute headway. There was no way for anybody to really figure out how to use that service. That was before I got here. I take no credit or blame for that. When I got here, we tried to make sure that we made the system much more reliable, try to go towards clock-fixed headways, which makes it easier for people to predict when the system is coming. We started making those changes. So in November 9th, we had made some significant changes. All of the reddish colors are gone. The systems are getting a lot more green. And then post November 9th of 24, coming up on a year in about 4 or 5 months, we started getting much more green, which means with 30-minute service. That's really what you want to see because that means the system is getting much more frequent, much more easy to predict how to use the service. And that, we believe, is one of the reasons we started turning around our ridership because it's easier for people to use our service. All right, an annual budget. So right after budgets are adopted, there's kind of a little bit of a lull period for us, a couple of months, and then we really start jumping back into it, we have conversations. We don't do the majority of the scheduling because we don't have a scheduling team inside, so we work with a consultant. Our consultants and us, we're sitting in basically, we have Nelson Nygaard, that's kind of a consultant for us. We work with them. We tell them kind of where we want the model to go. They tell us the breakdown on the round trip distance, and then they look at, based on the schedules that they'll pull together, where's the break between the city and the county so they can actually give us a cost model that we can show to the city and the county. So that's really what it looked like. This is what was done between September and October. So this is what the draft, the number there was 15,850. You will see that number changes a little bit. And our cost model at that point in time when we finished this original document was about $112.89 per cost revenue hour. That number went up a little bit because we hadn't factored in some changes in healthcare. You will see that in the next model. So once we went through that and we got our final numbers from the state and the feds knowing what we're actually going to get, and we put our schedules together, we made our pitches to the city and the county about what they needed to fund the models. So you can see now where the percentages and then how much comes from each funding source. So the top one is our federal number. So $5.1 million from the feds, operating assistance from the states, $2.6 million. We get money from Charlottesville. First time that the Charlottesville local number has exceeded our federal number, first time ever. So 32.6% versus 33%, that 0.4 is important to remember because our number continues to grow as we continue to build out based on the collective bargaining agreement. So that number is going to continue to go up. And our requirements for more funding is going to continue to go up. The local share from the county has gone up also. It's now $2.6 million, almost 2.7. The number from UVA has actually increased a little bit. prior to this, last year I think it was only 80-some thousand. We asked for 100,000 because the city and the county are putting money back in because we're paying that 1 year. Because we're operating zero fares, not free to everybody. So the jurisdictions that are helping to pick up. So we asked Papa Scott and by one point, $190,000, still below what we would have annually asked them. But that also was helping us close the gap. There was like a $75,000 gap when we finished the number up, and Scott was so generous in helping us make sure we closed that number. And then we wanted to make sure that we represented, there was a little bit of money from advertising, which is that $18,000 in there. We were working really hard. We believe next year that we're going to be able to, we're working on potentially getting a third-party group to help us and potentially get our revenue numbers up. So once we have all of our numbers, so we know what the final number is going to be, we make those pitches to the city and the county. Once they go through the budget process, then it allows us, actually this was reversed, so I'm going to go to this schedule first. And that's really what you have in front of you. If you want to refer to the big sheet, it's probably a little hard to see from the sheet. Once we have all of our numbers and the cost factors, it basically allows us to break down between city and county how much we're going to spend in each one of the jurisdictions and how much service. What I want you to notice is the 2A and 2B is in our numbers, which means we're going to split the 2A and 2B, make it bi-directional. That is what we're trying to do next fiscal year. That also will add service directly to the jail, to the high school, and to PVCC. Monticello High School, yes. Monticello High School and PVCC. So we're expanding our coverage model a little bit. And that was, I know that was important. We've had conversations with Diane has been asking for this for the last 3 years. So we finally are
allowing folks to ride the bus to visit inmates.
That's correct. So this allows us to get that done. So we're factoring that in. That's the major change that you see before you in our budget model. And I just wanted to, we can spend some time on it if you want to, but so if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. But once we do that, then it allows us an opportunity to break down each individual route, and we can show you how it costs out. So if you look at the Route 5 itself, the total between the city and the county is $2.3 million to operate that. And the total number of hours is basically listed out. The total number of hours in the city versus the county. The city is the C, Albemarle County is the A. And then our cost factor, remember I said the cost factor for our cost per hour changed from $112 to $113. That's because we know what the final numbers are. If you look at then we talk about how we pay for each individual route. So you can see out of the federal allocation, how much we allocate to the city and the county for the routes. The state will do the same thing, local, for the city and county, because the percentages wise. And then the UVA contribution, and then our advertising numbers to help close that last little bit of delta. We do that for every single route, it balances out, and that's how we get our final numbers. And we have a projection on how much service we're going to apply per year. Any questions?
I'm not sure if your presentation, are you through? No, I didn't think you were through, but any questions for right now? Okay.
Just want to stop.
They look like they're-
All right, we're going to move into MicroCat.
Okay.
MicroCat is 100% now funded by, well, I say that, but it's still got a little bit of grant money left. And it is a little bit of grant money left. So it's basically, I would say 98% funded by Albemarle County. The number that I highlighted there is the 23. When we first set up the MicroCat product, we had a goal of having service to you between 15 and 20 minutes. We're just outside that window now because the number of requests has continued to escalate. We're over 3,000 service requests a week now. They're able to provide service to about 75% of all of those requests. That number has dipped down. It used to be 82%, and it's because of the timing of folks when they want the service. Everybody continues to really want service on the peak periods of time. People trying to get to work, people trying to get to doctor's appointments. those are just things that you just want to keep in mind. The service is far exceeded any of the ridership numbers that we had projected in the study. All good things, not bad things. It's going to just highlight the fact that it's continuing to. Yes, sorry.
How is the weekly net demand and the weekly rides different?
So the weekly rides is individual people. The number, so you and I could take a trip. I may take 2 trips as opposed to 1, and you would take 1 trip. And
So it's weekly riders?
yes, but this is their chart from VIA. I'm just sliding it
Okay.
tonight.
It's how they track it.
It's how they track it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, does that say 25% of the ride requests were not made?
That's correct.
What?
Exactly. Yes.
But you were saying it's improved.
It's starting to, no, it was at 80%, it's starting to decline
sorry.
because it's the
Excuse me.
opposite.
Gotcha.
Because the number of requests is accelerating.
Right, gotcha.
And they can't, based on the 8 vehicles, they're not able to meet all the service requests.
So, Carl, do you have a sense of, someone said to me that one of your most sought-after destinations for riding was Albemarle High School?
It is,
Is that still accurate?
that is very accurate.
That's very interesting.
Students are using it, they were, I guess technically in a kind of a walk zone,
Right,
are using it to get to school,
interesting. What is your
or after
second?
school.
And I know several high school students that are using it after school to go to
Yeah.
jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're
Of course, it
doing
has to
that.
be in a job within the area, but it is what it is. But some of them are taking in and then walking into the city to their job, so it gets them part of the way. Yeah,
It gets them right to the edge.
yes, exactly.
That's correct.
What's the second? Do you know?
The second most used,
I'm just curious.
believe it was Walmart.
Walmart. Okay.
And I'd also, just I'm being on my soapbox here, I actually hear this used as a criticism. And at least in my own experience, I encounter teens on a regular basis. And their isolation is like even deadly in some cases. So having a way for teens to not be isolated is a matter of life and death for some kids. And it is certainly a quality of life issue for the kids and the parents. So, you know, if this can help address teenage angst, a problem we've been working on for thousands of years, then great.
Well, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And certainly, we've been talking in the county, unfortunately, for decades about how to provide more opportunity for our middle schoolers and our teenagers for more activities.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
And-
And it's a way for them to get to their job.
Exactly, until such time as the activity bus is perfect, this is pretty good. Yeah.
I appreciate this conversation.
So just want to highlight the fact that microcap started in November of 23. In that first full year of service, they did over 51,000 rides, which is well beyond what we had anticipated. I think the numbers that we're hoping to get 1,000 rides a month. So we were far exceeded anything that it's one of the fastest growing products that VIA has launched in the last 3 or 4 years, which is wonderful. Money well spent.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at data and here, so the last slide said 2,250 weekly net demand. Is that, so net demand, I'm reading that as 2,250 rides a week.
Mhm.
So I multiply that by 52 and get like 100,000 some, but the next slide shows how many rides? 51,000. What am I missing? Or not calculating?
This is
for
a full
year.
Different.
This is the first year.
That's the first year.
Sorry, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, also then, while I had cost per ride, are you gonna give us that? Thank you.
All right. So I wanted to show you where kind of a heat map. So to show where all of the rides are happening in the 2 zones. Remember, you can go between the 2 zones. So you're seeing some of that activity. Walmart, hotspot, number of rides still to the airport, to the school, along that zone. Target is a major area also. Food line also fortunately.
Good enough.
So,
A lot of busy destinations do have fixed route service. Is that changing any of the ridership at those locations?
hard to know whether it's changing in our ridership. It could be the frequency of our service, it could be supplementing, augmenting the service. But we need to work with VIA a little bit more to kind of assess, what's the kind of root causes for the trip. I haven't looked at their survey information in a little while, but we can dig into that. Okay.
It's a little tricky though, because for example, Albemarle High School doesn't have, Georgetown does, but the bus goes right after that. I'm just saying, it's a little bit
It's
tricky
not that far to walk from the
for
center,
walking, but
that's kind of the question of
yeah,
if we're providing fixed route service, we're expecting people to
Exactly.
walk through that service, are we using this as a first mile, last mile connection, or are we using this to supplement that fixed route when there's not getting one? That's,
Could be both.
it could be both, but it could be good to know.
and those ones I sense is at Albemarle High School,
No,
they're using it both ways. They're using it both ways.
We're not there, yeah, the 7 is one of our highest ridership routes, so they're using the service.
I just don't know. I know we're back on that upswing of ridership from where we were in the pandemic, and I don't know if we're stopping that growth by providing a different option, or if we're promoting that growth because we're providing a different option, and people to know when we're going.
Or people that play microcap as their first introduction to the service, and then they are kind of realizing it's like a
So a lot of folks are realizing they can't get into the city when they take a microcat. We hear that. I would love to be able to take microcat into the city. They can't, so they have to go from microcat, do whatever is in the zone, and then transfer to the fixed route service to 7 to get into the city. So, wanted to give you kind of this is their trend line, the monthly ridership as it continues to go up. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get them to give me the latest slide. I will send that up to the folks, but I've been on vacation and then I haven't been able to get to the right person to give me the updated slide. But as of January, the number has started to increase, as you can see. When we first started service in November, it was 500 rides total. The number jumped in March to 3,200. This was during the first year, 4,100. Steady growth. We're still growing. So this number of 6,800 is still not the accurate number. I think we're pretty close to 7,000 right now, which is I keep saying incredible. It is incredible based on the 2 zones that we have, which means our number of riders, the passengers per revenue hour continues to go up, which is a good thing. When those are shared rides, those aren't individual rides, which is what you want to see, which means we're efficiently using the service. People are still rating the service 4.9 out of 5, which means they're really satisfied with the service. Costs. Peter, you asked. We continue to drive the costs down because as the numbers continue to go up with people that share rides and continue to bring the cost down and become more efficient, and the algorithm gets better with the timing of where to place the actual vehicles, it actually helps us to get better. So when we first started out in the first quarter, it was like $30.16 a ride. The number continues to go down and it can steadily driving down. That number will never go to 0. 17.29 is pretty close to the bottom out. I've seen as low as 15 something, but I haven't seen anything lower than 15 for average ride, for cost per ride.
When you say the ride is shared, is that like, if me and my friend are going, does that count as sharing, or if it's me and some stranger who's going somewhere nearby, does that count as sharing?
Both.
So, okay. Thanks.
So we're almost to the end. So just want to give you kind of some of their numbers. They want to show you that the requests continue to escalate. That first one shows you right over 3,000 now. That was I just moved the slide, but that would have been the final slide here. But the numbers continue to go up about week after week after week. The number and our number of vehicle hours continues to go up because we're more efficiently using the 8 vehicles that are in there also. The number of rides continue to go, utilization continues to go up. So these are all metrics that we want to see. Our average ETA continue at that point in time was 22.1. The number is starting to creep up. We're going to continue to watch that. That really does mean that at some point in time, we've had conversations with Ann and the team about whether we have in Kevin about adding 1 or 2 more vehicles to get that number down. That's an additional cost, of course, and we're working with the potentially give us a cost estimate for that.
Is changing the size of the vehicle, changing the efficiencies for you? Like, you're talking about like 6 to 8 passenger vehicles right now with a slightly bigger vehicle.
It could, but it could also.
I would lengthen your time between stops.
Correct. So the more people I put on the van, I mean, I've got 10 people that I gotta get off that actually could do worse on you getting on a vehicle. Does that make sense? So having less people on the vehicle means I gotta get you off the vehicle to your point before I get somebody else.
It's a balance.
It's a balance. You gotta figure out.
It's a balance, yeah.
So they believe that we have the right vehicle in place. People are using the services. There's not a lot of trips anymore that don't have shared rides, which is also a great thing. Even late in the afternoons, or not in the afternoons after 6 or 7 p.m., you still have a bunch of shared ride services, which also shows that people are still using the service, which is a good thing. And that's it.
Yeah, so you can go back to that last slide, please, too. So the comments that shows very strong door-to-door efficiency. Is that benchmarked within VIA's network or more broadly, or do you know?
I think more than like this is probably VIA's network, but this is their slide from their networks.
And do you know if there's a benchmark with the next one, 75 to 80% range? Is that good, bad, or different compared to the network?
80% is good, right? You want to be 85 or above. That's in a great range. It's hard to get above that 85 to 90%. Consistent. It's just because we were really probably talking about 4 to 5 additional vehicles needed to get it into that range. And that's a heck of a
Increase
cost.
demand, which would then bring us back down. There's kind of an inherent scalability problem.
That's correct.
Well, I imagine there's also, the more people find out about it, the more people call who we can't serve, not because the funding's not there. I'm just curious of that. And another question I just thought of with Peter Kane's question about teenage angst. We also know the major public health crisis over adults being isolated. Is there any demographic data that we're able to collect?
Yes, they are collecting. I'm trying to remember what was in the survey information. I think you can actually pull. We don't get you get a range of ages. We don't get your exact age.
Is there anything other than age demographics that we're able to track?
Try not to. Try not to.
Try not to, because I have a theory that I checked my assumption, because.
Does it really matter who is using the service? As long as you're a resident in the region, actually you don't even have to be a resident, you just have to get into the zone, right? So you put on the app, you walk into the zone, you can use it. It doesn't really matter whether you are low income, high income, it doesn't matter. All we want to know is, are you in the zone? Can we get to the service and get to where you want to be?
That makes sense.
From the operator's perspective, that's true, but as fiduciaries, we do have to think about the opportunity cost of that ride. So when I'm thinking about a teenager not driving or getting to an office, I do have to factor in the parents lost wages, or getting a kid to soccer practice is actually 2 trips, because it's the parent driving the kid to the soccer game, the parent cooling their heels, missing work or whatever. So that trip is actually in some ways more valuable than just like me going to pick up a pair of shoes or whatever. So you're doing it the correct way, but for us to be able to to think about what we're doing with this transportation, I think does actually factor into the cost,
One,
yeah.
the model was designed to be a purely hailing service, right? It's on demand.
Right.
You ask for the service, we come get you. We're not putting a weight factor whether you are a kid,
Right.
senior, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
As long as you're in the zone,
Right.
you hail the service, they will tell you whether they can come get you, or they will say, you're outside the window that you need, you can't provide the service, but if you can, they will say, we'll be there in
That's right.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all.
And that's how it should be. I'm just saying for evaluation purposes, other data is helpful,
For
could be helpful.
funding and continuing, I mean, what are the goals of the project?
Exactly.
Well, and I
Which
was,
is kind of.
As we're entering the last year, I'm
and I was
thinking
gonna
more
say,
in
as we
those
start
terms.
as the
Yeah.
community leaders and start having these discussions,
Yeah.
those factors are gonna start to
Yeah.
play out.
Yeah, people are gonna
Is
ask
it
me,
remain free, is there a charge, is there?
yeah, people ask me about a 18-year-old, $18 taxi ride. And I can say back, well, if it were me, that would probably be a bad deal because I could ride my bike. But for a kid, it might be a good deal, yeah.
That's, I think when we're evaluating whether it's a good deal or not, we've got to do some apples to apples comparison, and I saw cost per ride in this, but I didn't see that in the fixed route, so I don't know how to compare those two.
Yeah.
But in the fixed route, we saw cost per hour, and I'm not seeing that in this, and so I don't know how to compare those two.
The cost per hour mile is because that's what the city and the county has asked us to do. We're a cost per hour mile, not a cost per mile. We can convert our model to a cost per mile. We report to NTD, you can actually see our costs per ride. It's out there.
I mean, we've got.
I do not have it here, but
We have the per hour for, I mean, if that's how we're working out this route with the county, it's kind of weird that we don't have that cost per hour for this service.
it was just the way it was designed for when we put microcat in place. So it really wasn't, the factor isn't the cost per hour for the microcat product. It was based on the amount of service hours that they thought they could do based on a fixed amount of money. And they kind of backed into the model. Because that was what the grant would supply, that's what we said in the original projections, that this is what the number was. That is from the study that was done by, I can't remember who, do you remember?
What study? What are you talking about,
The original study.
Albemarle expansion?
Yes.
Kinley
No,
Horn?
it was not Kim.
Was that Michael Baker?
AECOM?
AECOM.
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 AECOM did the projections and.
Plenty of copy.
It was AECOM in Foursquare, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Foursquare, I
And
remember
Foursquare.
that.
So those, they were the ones that set up the model, we were just, you remember,
In terms of
we're
figuring
the
out-
managers.
In terms of figuring out what we need going forward, we're not gonna be relying on their model necessarily for determining how much it costs.
Guys, excuse me, I'm sorry, but we're recording as well.
I'm sorry, the data.
No, they don't figure it anyway, so, I think it's gonna be important for us to be able to make some comparisons between the transit services, and if we can't make that cost per hour, or cost per passenger, or cost per mile, an evident comparison between the two, it's gonna be hard for us to make that decision.
So I would just say, CAT's role is to manage it based on what was given to us. And I believe we're managing it to the most efficient way we possibly can. If you want us to do something differently, that is, we just need to be told how to track and do. But that would not
The
our,
different thing is gonna be moving forward without a grant funding. Like whether the county wants to do it or not, that's kind of their decision and not the city's, but I would hope that you guys probably would want to have that information, so.
Right, and that was what I was just saying, there will be some questions that will be asked, there's some data that's gonna be needed, as Albemarle County is talking about this moving forward.
so, Ryan sits in most of those meetings now. And Kevin McDermott is there. I think Ann comes every once in a while.
And more, yeah.
Annual, yes, every once in a while. So just, if the dynamics are changing and you want us to start tracking things, you just need to be informed so we can make sure that we start tracking.
But I'm just saying, because we have now a free service,
We have a
there are
robust,
decisions that are gonna have to be made.
well-used, robust, free service, that is, we're still not meeting 100% of the demand, So there's still additional pent up demand in your model. We just need to figure out what that means.
Not for today.
That's it?
Randy, did you have any questions you would like? I didn't mean to.
No, I don't think you prefer to the group, but I got my answer.
Okay.
From these guys.
It's okay, it's all good. Any other questions? All right, well, you're still, Carmen, I have some questions. And because it's budget, and we're discussing budget, and one of the hugest drivers, or largest driver in Albemarle County budget is our health insurance for our employees. Get into that. And that's why we offer gymnasiums for employees to exercise. We offer, and certainly all of our police officers, our fire and rescue, our ACRJ, deputies, and all of, anybody that's uniformed, right, in safety, needs to be able to work out and keep in shape. It's also a big driver when you're talking about, certainly the budget of the health insurance and health of our employees. So you were running a system that is very sedentary for employees. So, and I guess I'll just leave it at that. Having said that, though, do you have a sense for your drivers of what health insurance, because ours went up, our Ann's not here, but we were talking about close to a 30% increase in our health insurance this year in Albemarle County, which is why we've opened 2 clinics to try and get at that with our employees.
So I don't want to give you a bad number on the percentage of the health funding increases, but that was one of the numbers that changed our cost per hour from 112 to 113, because there wasn't an increase in our health care.
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is, so I'm going to just leave it at that, but I will say, one of the things the city has is a health program, and they do a reimbursement for up to $34 a month for people in the gym.
Right.
I think, I want to say our numbers that who are taking advantage, I don't know whether they're all drivers or not, they're going like 20 to 24 people are using it. There was a discussion, I believe, a long time ago when the facility was first met about putting space in for a gym at our location, but things changed because the original design of our facility had a second floor also, and that never was done. One of the things that we go back and the building wasn't reinforced to actually add a second floor, but we can't do that. But I would say one of the things that we ever get an opportunity, sometimes it becomes dead space, meaning people use it 3 or 4 months and then it's just sitting there, collecting dust. But if we could, there are programs where that, like Charlotte, they call themselves CATS. Charlotte, they had an incentive program for drivers to stay fit. They would, once a quarter, you would get a weigh-in. If you maintain your weight, you got a gift card, $100. If you lost weight, it was up about $250. Those sorts of things to incentivize you to stay healthy, to drive their healthcare costs down. John Lewis was the director at that one time. He used to work with GRTC, which is why I kind of followed what he was doing. He's no longer there, so I don't know what they're doing, but I do know he drove their healthcare costs down by incentivizing people with gift cards or once a quarter to try to
And
stay.
it's such a big driver for all of our budgets. To be perfect for us, I think all of the counties in the city budget is health insurance and health for our employees. I know, for example, that the city, certainly the city police force, the sheriffs, and Albemarle County and the jail, we all want our safety officers to be fit and healthy and well, and that extends also to all of our other employees.
I mean, part of what
and I don't belabor this because we got, Mike's got his thing to do with it, but,
Don't let him get
I'm
set
always
up.
open to the fact that, we look at all of our costs, so one of the things that me and my senior team, I do every, other week, so, the first and third is the full staff, and the second and fourth and the fifth, with the senior team, we're looking at those cost factors, so I'm trying to track and see if we can change any of that, developing kind of incentive programs with help, I gotta really fund it, and then we gotta make sure it's in line with what the city allows us to do.
Well, and when you have the availability of a gymnasium for the employees that's easy for them to get to and use, that's where it actually makes a difference. And it drives down the cost and saves all of us money. And I'm thinking about how we're gonna pay for microcat going forward. Anything you can do to drive down the healthcare costs, I mean, I'm just saying, it makes a difference. So, thank you for that. And, any other questions? I took us down a rabbit hole maybe, but it really is, it does tie in the budget. And we never talk about that at these meetings as, drivers and healthcare. All right, Mike, you're on.
Are you sure?
We've given you enough time to get it loaded.
I'm not responsible for loading it in any way, but, it occurs to me, different people have different styles, and if you loved Garland's presentation, you might hate mine. So, I mean, because I took a very different approach. But it is similar to what I presented to this group last year. I'll start at the end with Ms. McKeel's question. I will tell you that JAUNT has a funky time of year that we renew healthcare. And so I went through that in the February period for a March 1 renewal, January and February. And the company that we were with, will remain nameless, wanted to increase our rates by 72%. Wow. Which caused us to take a hard look at all of the factors and how many plans we offered, what the benefit is, and ultimately changing to a provider who offered us similar service for 28% increase, which after you've been hit with 72 seems like a bargain, but it's still a whopper, right? And so as we talk about some of the costs, there are drivers in this budget that did increase over this past year. Healthcare is a big one of those. I'll just reinforce, and I don't know that I've for sure heard this from Garland, but each and every one of our drivers does have a level of fitness that they need to have, and they have annual physicals. And so in order to keep their license and continue to drive with us, and particularly for us, since 40% of what we do is complimentary paratransit, each and every person has to be able to get down on their hands and knees and strap into a wheelchair and be able to push that and operate a lift and all these other things as well. And people are tested for that. So.
Thank you very much, because it really is, and I don't want to keep belaboring it, but there are two pots of employees, it seems like to me: safety officers, jail security officers, fire and rescue, police, and then people who are sedentary in their jobs, like folks that drive buses a lot, and just in general. So all of our employees, but especially those two pots, I think, really need those two groups of people, really need those opportunities. And it helps
answer you and launch in here, but I'll just say that think of JAUNT as somewhere in between those things, because this is a door-to-door service, and so this is not a sit in the chair the whole time.
Well, we gotta, and I'll stop.
Okay.
I'm thinking budget.
So I think big picture about budget first. I'm thinking about, well, what's this budget intended to do? The budget is intended to meet the big goals of the board, right? And so when we think about where we've been as a board and what the board has prioritized as our big priorities for this next year, they're about being a part of what's happening here regionally with CARTA, about formalizing the agreement with CAB. Although we've been doing the ADA service for 38 years, we need a new written agreement. We understand the success of MicroCat. We actually think for our ADA customers and also our customers in green, and we've presented to you our studies on this, that this would be a major enhancement, more efficient, drive down costs. And so we do have a demonstration grant that's been funded to bring on-demand service to both those places. For me, just thinking about leadership and running organizations, most of the people at JAUNT have never really had formal supervision meetings or performance evaluations. That's a non-negotiable for me that has to change, and it's also a big sea change for us, right? And so I've been spending the last couple of months ensuring that all 124 employees have a valid job description and a job guide, and we'll be marching out supervisory training over these next couple months. It's a big internal change that you may not think about, but translates into us being the best we can be. And then more globally, one of the things that's most clear to me at JAUNT is the ways in which it has deferred lots of advances, and one of those is in the scheduling platforms. We are operating the same scheduling software and taking phone calls for over 2 decades. And that's just not a real thing that you can do anymore. And so we actually, as of the Commonwealth Transportation Board's approval the other day, we have $1.5 million in this next 5-year or 4-year cycle of thinking about software to devote towards thinking about our version of fixed route, which is the connect routes, bringing people in for workforce services purposes, for doing on-demand and demand response.
Congratulations.
And so as of Tuesday sometime in the afternoon, Commonwealth Transportation Board met. We had 10 projects funded in the state budget. The only one that was not funded, and I think completely appropriate, is we didn't score well enough on, apparently JAUNT has always put in for their Microsoft platform as a capital expense based on the dollar amount, without considering it just a basic operating expense. I appreciate that as the state reforms their opinions about how to prioritize the dollars, that didn't make the cut. Everything else was funded, and as I get into later in the presentation, funded in a way that's incredibly advantageous to the localities as far as match rates go. When we think about the budget and we start coming together, literally just a couple months from now to think about the next budget, we have to think about, well, what's driving the budget? And you see what my considerations were here. We were using actual ridership to help us decide, are we going to be flat, up, down, and of course it does vary by locality. And like Garland, we are, for all of our purposes, tracking miles, hours, whether that's revenue hours, deadhead, etc. And you know, there is some identification for JAUNT that at different periods in the almost 50-year history that I highly identified with driving folks around from the nonprofits, lots of small contracts and agency service. And when PACE came here, you see there's a huge fleet of Innovate buses now, right? But when they came, they just used JAUNT. And so we had a big inflation in that agency service for a period of time, which has steadily been going down, which is their model when they come to a community, right? They use a service that's there and then they ramp up their own fleet. So this is to be expected. And we're just budgeting for what the actual and where we're projecting to be in the next year. Like Garland, I strongly believe that we want to continue to be fare free, and when it comes time to stand in front of the elected officials, we'll stand together about what all the costs are to collect fares and how it actually may not be a net positive when you start thinking about new accounting folks and fare clerks and fare boxes and software, and whether you're going to bring the Brinks truck out to the facility every day and all this other stuff that comes along with it. This budget in the end has big increases in salary and fringe, and that's partly because of the big increase on those fringe benefits on the healthcare side. And of course, I think we understand that with collective bargaining in the city, that resets the market for the region, and there's an impact on bus drivers at UTS and at Albemarle County Public Schools and at JAUNT and everywhere else, right? And so there is a new norm out there. Because if we want to lag a cat by, many dollars per hour, then we will have no drivers. And so that's just how the business works at this point. We don't have any new state-funded studies in this year. We are, it used to be that agency on the board reports would just be in the unrestricted category, along with any governmental activity and other things. That's just really more of a note for my board. One of the things, as a sub-recipient to CAT of the $5307, which is for urban service, it's right now not categorized as anything other than a distribution to JAUNT considered operating. And by virtue of that fact, and not saying this much is for capital, this much is for operating, there are times where that's very problematic with the match rates that the localities pay for our capital expenses. And so in the future, that'll be a point of negotiation about whether that's a good idea to actually earmark some of the dollars, and something that other CEOs, directors in the past have resisted, which is the idea of, should we segregate our fleet? When I talk about segregating the fleet, that is, up until now, there's 107 buses at JAUNT, and they could go do whatever on any given day. In Louisa County, in the middle of the city, in Buckingham, wherever the case may be. Well, those buses are technically paid for out of the 5311 pot of capital dollars, right, with the capital contributions of locality. And so when that happens, we can't just get a 4% match rate. It inflates the match rate up into the mid 30%. And so that's a big picture regional issue that at some point needs to be addressed. This is just a representation on these next couple slides graphically for people understanding, what does that little 4% change in ridership look like? And here's a different representation of riders when we think about by jurisdiction. What's most notable here is that we've got our highest ridership by far in Albemarle County, followed by the city. Keep in mind that Albemarle is both, because CAT runs into Albemarle, a place that it's possible to have the complimentary paratransit service and our demand response service, and has riders that are on our commuter routes. In fact, the most traveled commuter route of all, about 25,000 rides a year, is folks coming back from Crozet into town every day to work at UVA and other employers. And this is just another lens to understand, it's not as simple as thinking about rides. There's a lot of hours that go into this because, when we're at peak, we have roughly 56 to 60 buses on the road at the same time. And so that drives these miles up. And the other thing that drives miles that may not make sense at first is it's hard for me to catalog a ton of miles within the city limits because the city is 10.3 square miles. So there's lots of tiny short routes, right? I start driving somebody from one side of Louisa County to the other side of Louisa County, a lot more miles per ride. There you go. All right, so when we think about the operating revenues, what's coming in, none of that fare revenue. We're planning on revenues coming down for the agency. Up until this past year, JAUNT was getting money for operating from the state in two different ways, and in this year, and reporting the data for the urban service. And it was an outlier for the entire state of Virginia in that regard. And so in working with DRPT and CAT, there was a decision that, no, those are, and actually it will be a financial benefit to both the city and the region, those are better accounted for as CAT riders. You send them your ridership for the ADA service every month to be reported under CAT, and then just include in your agreement with CAT what the appropriate amount of reimbursement is. And that is how it's been. Matter of fact, last year when we changed that, we did some retroactive at the state level changing of the data, right, Katie?
And that's the way it's done in other localities.
Everywhere else.
Everybody else.
Everywhere else.
Everybody
How
else.
often we are the outliers, but that's okay, I mean, in a lot of things. Yeah.
It's corrected and
It's
actually
culture
it's a
and how we-
benefit
yeah, I get it.
to us, it actually provides a little bit more money.
It should say at the city limits, or maybe the county limits, you know, when you're driving in,
Yeah,
we're
makes
special
sense.
here.
Makes sense, that's what we all.
I don't arrive at that conclusion lightly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's
We've always
informed
thought
by
ourselves special.
37 years of life. We have obviously cash on hand, and you know, when that's able to, we put in an investment account. Up until when I joined last year, that was never accounted for as an income stream, and since it generates 6 figures in income each year, we incorporate that in as a revenue. And then finally, we also receive some amount of money from UVA. So I'm not going to go into the deep dive on these numbers, and I didn't do you the courtesy of the giant paper. But let me talk about big picture, what we're looking at in 26. So we've got a little bit of a hallucination, which is that the budget looks like overall that it's more than $1 million smaller, right? And that's caused by 2 things. One is I've asked the board the last 2 years to approve excess capital policy where we retained some of that excess capital and then sent the rest back to the localities, anticipating big expenses in capital. So we were holding some dollars, right? And so that made the 5-year average that we asked the localities for on the capital side a little bit smaller, because we're trying to have a smoothing effect. And on the operating side, what we have is an actual increase of $1 million. And that's almost entirely driven by 3 factors. And first 2 are people, salary and fringe. And the third is insuring the buses has gotten incredibly more expensive. And as we rotate our rolling stock, like when the 16 buses hit the yard this year and we got rid of buses that were 4, 5, 6 years old, well, it costs a whole lot more to insure those brand new buses than the ones that were going off the lot. And so we have forecast for that in 26 in a different way than we did going into 25 that will hopefully cover all the costs as we get that influx of buses, which typically happens in the range of like February, March through May. This is just a jurisdictional look. So let me talk about the capital side. You know, capital is all reimbursement based. This is not like when we ask local governments for money, get the quarterly or monthly reimbursements or disbursements from you all. This is after you spend it, let us know, send us the documentation, state will send you a check. The only exception to that is buses, and even on that, there's an expectation of a pretty tight turnaround, right? Like, you know, because it's not as expensive as a Garland type bus, but, you know, when I take delivery on a half a dozen buses, I got to turn around and give the dealer about $1 million, right? And so we need to have that on hand. Not everybody has the capacity to do that. But we're talking about the difference of a week or a couple of days. Up until the Commonwealth Transportation Board, the budget is built on the concept that we have to have 36% match on capital. And I'm happy to tell you in some later slides that that's going to be a lot less this year. We were included in DRPT's 5339 request, is that what that's called? To get it from 4% down to 2%?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
bus facilities, yeah.
Yeah. And so that remains undetermined whether we're going to get down there. However, the CTB has approved the budget where DRPT at their own discretion decided based on, you know, a lot of conversation that we would be getting our capital request through 5339 this year. And, you know, you should all hug Katie on the way out if she likes us. Because what this means is 4% match on millions of dollars instead of 36% match. And I'll quantify exactly what that means in just a bit. And why is that possible? Number one, because DRPT has discretion with this pot, and that pot is agnostic as to whether we're talking about rural or urban. And then we don't get into the, question about, is the fleet commingled? Is it segregated? Are you getting capital money for 5307 service? Are you getting it for 5311? And so this is a big deal for all of us. I'll try and dive into some numbers on that in a moment. We did hold some reserve dollars for capital projects, anticipating that we would need those if we were at this high match rate. We're going to be able to reconsider that. We have a $3 million yearly parking lot project that is going to be funded now come July 1. It's borderline incredible to me that JAUNT has had millions of dollars in assets that have never been fenced in for the entirety of the organization. And not just not fenced in, that parking lot project is going to up our safety, not just with fencing, but lighting, cameras, a lot of enhancements for safety and security for our folks. I bring you back to this page just to remind you of what all these projects are and to say that outside of the operating, all of these are receiving an incredibly beneficial rate of either 4% or in the case of the demo grant, 20%, I think, match. But what does that turn into when we start talking about local dollars that come to JAUNT? Well, it means that we were holding $500,000 I didn't send back to the locality in excess capital from 24. And we were asking for, in each of those 5-year averages that we put out, so in the 26 budget, $1 million distributed between the jurisdictions and capital. So about $1.6 million we were thinking about was going to need to be spent from local dollars on capital projects for JAUNT in the next 12 months. Well, when we look at what's going to be the product of this more favorable match rate, and we look at what's being carried over from our 25 projects, we're going to only need about $500,000 in local match. And so we're talking about $1.1 million in delta because of this favorable change, and really talking about how do we partner better with the state. Now, don't get too crazy about this. Yeah, there is one little, but two mitigating factors. One is we've got a little bit of an operating shortfall, and that's caused by the fact that you all recall that with the ARPA dollars, there was this ability to spend them any time between now and 29. And so we've been conservative with those dollars. And in fact, we're planning on using about $300,000 to $400,000 of them to meet this shortfall and not ask for local dollars in the 26 budget. It was part of our calculus. It was part of our revenues. Well, a few months ago, Garland's colleagues who count the beans came over and said, we have legitimate concerns based on the state of affairs in the federal government that there could be some clawbacks, and maybe ask us for all that money now. And so you see that we asked them and have received $956,000 in this year that we don't really need to balance the books in 25. And so it's going to really inflate our excess capital when I bring that to the board and then ultimately to the shareholders. And I'll just say we need to exercise caution and not send all of it back in excess capital at once, because we do have a couple of gaps that are going to be out here. Most importantly, this $304,000 in the current budget. But that's something that will be explored by the board once we finish our audit. So sometime in the November timeframe, I'll say that JAUNT by policy has a history of whenever we don't spend the local dollars, we send them back in the ratio in which you make contributions. Made a little bit of tweak in the formula to make sure that it was fair, particularly to our biggest contributors when I joined last year. And so, as you would imagine, if Albemarle is the biggest contributor, they get the largest share of the dollars, right? And so, for example, that on the previous slide here, that 563, right? At the end of 24, we actually ended with a balance that was $1.1 million that we could send back to the local governments. And I said, let me hold half for these capital projects, and then we send the other half back to the city, the county, the other 5 rural jurisdictions. And we'll do the same thing, except that number in the coming year is going to look, almost nearly twice as large, and we'll just need to be prudent about how much gets sent back. But it will be significant. And so I'm at the point for questions. A little bit different approach, but hopefully not too bad.
Looking around at the members here and see if anybody has any questions.
When your slide with the data, the stats on it, so 238,095, that was the ridership number?
Mhm.
Is that's individual rides? not-
Individual rides, yes. Unlinked passenger trips. And we'll say that, like Garland, we talk about, what was the high point, what happened to COVID, people digging their way out of that. The highest on record that we can find for JAUNT is some number that looked like 300,000, but it also happened at a period of time where there's some record-keeping issues and we don't have entire confidence in them.
When are you anticipating your new pavement and your lighting and your fencing and all of that to be completed?
To be completed.
Well, I mean, it just-
What I have right now is 30% design plans, right? And so there's a real road between that, putting it out to bid, making 100% plans, actually digging into the ground. It will not all be done in this next 12 months. That would be extraordinary.
18 months,
I hope, yeah.
just curious. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. These were very informative presentations, and I know everybody really appreciates it. And they were given in a way that you might understand. Thank you. All right, with that, we're on to because we've already had the working group update, so we're on to our provider updates. Albemarle County Public Schools is first, and I think Jamie's not here. But who said that we have?
Devin Thompson
Yeah.
was online for Jamie, but she is not online.
No, she had to go somewhere, so we lost her. All right, so I'm gonna turn to Scott, UTS.
Yeah, so, well, it's summer, I know.
Sorry, pink jacket.
I know, we look identical, right? Yeah.
We also put in our notes, let's make you a name tag so you don't have to have Scott in front of you when you are his alternate.
That
We'll
sounds
take
good.
care of that.
No problem. So Scott is actually currently away at the Gillig facility in California. Our order of battery electric buses is currently being built, and so he's there watching the battery plot right now. So he's having a grand old time.
Is he taking pictures?
Oh yeah, he's been blowing up my phone all day. So we're excited to receive those probably late July, early August. They're not going to hit service for a while though, so we anticipate them hitting service sometime late fall, maybe winter service. But other than that, it's summer, so it's pretty slow for us. We're doing a lot of other supplementary work at the moment. The Fontaine Parking Garage is coming along nicely, so that's a big win for us coming up here soon.
Yeah.
So
That's great. Any questions?
How many battery electric buses are you getting?
So our order is for 4. Yes.
You had to go all the way to California.
Yep.
That's where they're, I mean.
Yeah, they had to. It's just an hour, I think, outside of San Francisco, so.
Are you flying in here? Are you flying in here? They're not.
They're driving.
They're driving.
Wow.
No kidding, but they're driving.
All right.
Mechanics getting an electric vehicle, that's the first thing challenge.
So,
Real
it's an amazing thing, so when we get our vehicles, we'll get a radio call to say we'll be in 12 hours, if they're approaching. And when they do that, they're asking us for a ride to the airport. So someone will be there, and literally go from us to the airport, fly out to the next place. All of them.
Are you even charging as they're coming across?
They actually have places where they.
Yeah, they have a
they
network.
back it out. They have a bunch of sites.
I know that they were developing one sort of like here, maybe on Culpeper or some place crazy there.
Greene County, off of 33.
Yeah, he said that coming this way after they get past, he did say, I don't remember, but they come towards 95 and they cut over. And that's what the charging.
New flyer ships all theirs on flatbed trucks, because they
What's
don't,
the range?
they don't want to
Let's put a lot of miles on some new shiny buses.
It breaks them in, so.
It does, it certainly does that.
It's all about framing
It's not even
perspective.
about really
Tires
about
and
oil change on a diesel. You would think it is, but it's not. It's not enough, it's not even enough miles to do a oil change. So they do get to, so one time one of our buses got here, a diesel bus, there was a court that actually took the bus, turned right back around and took it back.
What's the range on the buses? What's the range on the buses?
So there's what Gillig says is going to be the range, and then there's what is actually going to be the range, and that's the real question, right? They are 686 kilowatts. So we added an extra battery pack. So Gillig
6 or 7?
7, yeah. So Gillig advertises somewhere between 250 and 300 as the range. I anticipate it's going to be somewhere closer to 150. That's what I would expect. Because there's also the battery capacity that you want to keep the charge within between 80 and 30% typically. So that automatically.
and the heat over the last couple of days.
And it's filled up with helium for the
Yeah,
month.
I was-
Yeah, that's right.
I was
Really cold, wasn't it?
no, well, because you're running the AC and things like that. I was at a bus facility in Texas yesterday on battery electric bus, and I was watching it tick down percents, like in real time, just from running AC and idling.
Interesting. That makes sense. I do want to just thank you, because I'm hearing from folks that live in that district on Gateway Road about the smaller buses that are now going under the 2 bridge overpasses, which is lovely. And when the Gray Star development has built out of this open, that would really be great for that. So, for that development as well. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for those smaller buses.
Yes, the mini, they're also electric buses. I'm not sure if Scott has shared before. But they're really opening up some opportunities for us in service, because in the past, we've just had these big transit vehicles, and there are certainly necessary transportation services that don't warrant or can't be supported by a larger vehicle, so
Well, when you have
we're
that
excited.
road with a lot of people in
Yeah.
apartment complexes and 2 bridges that the big ones can't go under, I mean, this has been great. So thank you very much for that, I really appreciate it. Any other questions? All right, so Garland, you're back on.
Okay, we are applying for a no-go, grant, which is a discretionary grant. We went through the technical and then the possible yesterday, final proof, thank you very much. Which we're applying for money to, do, which we consider the primary component to do we need to expand our facilities, one, we got more service, because the vehicles, but also our transition starts, last year, the state authorized us to buy 2 electric vehicles. Those are on order, they'll be delivered July of 26. That is happening, and we just got approved for 2 more on CTV, so that's part of our project was 6 vehicles, 6 to 8 vehicles, as our pilot program. So that's kind of halfway, getting the number of vehicles we need. We are also approved for the charging equipment, which is key, because we can't have vehicles not being charged. So that is, thankful that the state helped us make that happen. So we're at the place, and I don't know if anybody actually saw the presentation from Bruce yesterday, but we're pretty far down the line, and we're continuing to get poles and the transformers done, so we have 2 locations, one on the school side, and then that's a project we're working specifically with and the school bus program, and then we're working on the transit side to make sure we have ample spot to be able to charge 4 to 6 vehicles, retrofitted maintenance facility to be able to charge them when they're working. The NOLO grant though is looking at how to improve our facility so we'll be able to work on these vehicles 20 to 30 years from now. With our changing whole fleet over to either hydrogen or battery electric. Our current facility will not be coded to be either one of those. So we're going to build this new facility or potentially spend between $15 to $20 million retrofitting. We still have a facility, we just taking care of the necessary parts. We could build a brand new facility instead of that's available and complete with everything we need for the next 30 years for about between 37 and 39 million. So that's good to do. That's kind of the things that we're working through right now. The grant application has to be in by July 14th. We will have it in by the 13th. So nobody's going home. So we will have that out there. It's a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of some discretionary money. We believe this is a project that's worthy, meaning that it fits our timeline, we've all the work that we've done. We're basically lined up, it's almost a shovel-ready project. We're at when we started the NEPA process, which is a precursor to the end of capital projects. We're at the NEPA right now. NEPA should be complete for us by November if we are awarded. So we should be able to get the construction for 6 to 8 months. And hopefully that means the timeline will be able to complete, build out the facility before this administration leaves. Which will give them an opportunity to work out, which is what they like. Everybody likes. Not just this administration, all administrations, when we really bring that to them. So that's where we are, what we're spending most of our time right now. We actually have 6 of our 8 buses that were ordered, on property, that all of the bells and whistles, all of the APCs, all of our components for the app, GPS systems, they launched today. So they're operating. We have had just a couple minor tweaks, but that's wonderful. We haven't had the same thing with anything, which is really what you want to see when you ride brand new vehicles. And then we'll be ordering based on the generous funding from CTV State. Our next round of vehicles September. And that means we'll be able to get rid of 6 additional diesel older vehicles and then buy 2 more by the way.
Any questions for Bob? I think those costs are always eye-popping for folks.
Yeah, I didn't say the cost, but there is.
Well, you were talking about the cost of the facility.
Well, facility, yes, I told you facility cost, but the alternative fuel costs. Charging is probably, I don't know the figures yet, but 2 to 3 million. For the size of, it's a different model that transit agencies have to buy as opposed to for school buses. We can't charge for only 7 years. We would actually burn that rate as well. The charge that requires us is much higher than the school bus. The school bus is very close to what you do if you push that car. So that is not what's being put in for transit bus. The lack of that is going to be the same charge that's not what but we did get good information from the neighbor that we don't have to put in a substation, right? Such as that was wonderful.
That is really
that would have been $40+ million, which we do not have, and they don't have either. So as we're working through this model, we just are cognizant of that. We still can do our model for hydrogen and battery electric based on the numbers that we have. We may not typically have to do so that's good.
Well, 40 million is still a comprehensive high school with triple that. I'm just saying, when you're looking at what costs of building.
That's right.
Exactly, and we all know hospitals and jails are the most expensive, and then it goes down from there. But schools are, so I heard that number and I thought, oh, well, it's a lot of money, but.
We're going to be coming back, we're going to be looking for more discretionary funds.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that we work with the state, they're encouraging us to make sure we apply for as much discretionary money as we possibly can, which means we take the pressure off of their budget cycles, which is what we want to do. We're always looking for cash to do more capital projects. Every transit agency is trying to get bigger, trying to get more efficient, trying to meet the goals of transitioning. All of that stuff is extremely expensive. I don't think the catering team, they have to manage everybody's wants. Small versus big transit agencies, trying to get, trying to comply with transitioning our fleets. Really expensive stuff.
And she's still smiling.
Yeah, it's really expensive stuff. So we've been trying to get our numbers down, but really expensive.
All right, if there are no questions, then I'm going to switch to Mike. Mike, you're on for JAUNT. Jan.
Well, as my budget presentation told you, right, we've got these big priorities and a lot of energy is going into those things right now. Internally, a performance evaluation system and job descriptions. As we are, a few days now away from having access to some dollars, we're looking at that demonstration grant. We've been identifying potential vendors and who has contracts at other places around the state so that we don't necessarily have to go through a full-blown procurement to do a demo. Unfortunately, not every local government that has to work through the Public Procurement Act always incorporates the cooperative language that is required. And it's a barrier sometimes. And so.
You did say required, right?
What's that?
You said required, right?
Oh, it's required because let's remember that we don't break the law in order to do a demonstration project.
That's right.
So we're looking very carefully at a couple of models. I've exhausted many resources throughout the state. I'm very hopeful about one of our partners to the southeast of here, fingers crossed. As we think about that big $1.5 million project, we're actually talking with some other providers in the state who are thinking the same way about whether there's a way that we might share that process and also do it in a way where agencies that follow us that maybe aren't quite as big and don't have all these procurement resources could ride on that contract, right? That's the kind of thing that we should be doing when we go out for these resources, because everybody needs scheduling software. So we should write our awards that way and seek them that way. So more to come on that. I think, what's really present for me just from a people perspective right now is it's ridiculously hot out there, and that causes us to be thinking differently about operations, break times, We don't normally provide hydration every day for our folks, but we're delivering to 7 different sites every day, ice down chests and water and Gatorade in order to make sure that we're keeping people hydrated and safe. As luck would have it, not only is this an opportunity for Garland to get back in line with his 5307 audit and therefore us as a subrecipient, but we had the good fortune of also being selected by the state as the subrecipient of $5311 for their audit on August 5th. I am in the midst of right now working. I think what it is nobody did these things for 5 years and it's overdue. So, right, like, the 5311 workbook, which I'm really enjoying, came to me with 169 pages of check boxes and narrative fields and document requests. So that's for me.
Wow.
Just to top it off, we got our however many year requests from the Virginia Employment Commission to send them 3 years worth of payroll records. So it is audit season, in a season that I didn't know was audit season. Happy summer.
So I wasn't gonna say anything about that, but since you brought it up, we are actually gonna have our triannual review for us. It actually starts on the 17th of July, which is why we had to have this audit done. Unfortunately, they moved our number up. We were hoping for August to give you time. They told us no, July is going to be your date. They really wanted to do it in May. I was not here when the date they wanted to do it in May. So, thank the feds for that.
Well, when you
I'll
all,
try to give you time.
when you all have completed all that work, let us know and we'll have cupcakes. All right, Kate, the RPD.
Alright, well, yeah, so as it seems like most people know, the CTV approved our recommended project scenario for our grant funding this year, which is awesome. So all of that funding will go live on July 1st. We'll have contracts out as soon as we can, but those dollars are available starting July 1st. And then we'll be moving into more working with agencies on the post board. Houses in July. The other things with the federal discretionary is we encourage agencies to take advantage of. We're doing a state application, as Meg was saying, for the bus and bus facilities. We have to apply on behalf of rural agencies, so we're doing a statewide application, which Sean is included in to apply for buses that would get the local match down to 2%, which would be huge. So that is in the works, and then it's a mid-July due date, so definitely busy time for us as well. I think that's one of the big.
Okay. Any questions for Katie? Or any questions for anybody that we may have thought of? All right. With that, we move to other business. Does anybody have any other business? I don't see anybody jumping up. I'm going to ask Garland one quick question. Can you just give us a quick 101, or maybe not 101, but a quick really update on bus shelters and where you stand with bus shelters? That would be, with this kind of heat.
Yes, great. We had $324,000 worth of level tools. We started on a demonstration. We selected 3 projects in the city, 3 projects in the county. We started on one we considered to be one of the most difficult bus stops locations in the city with great issues, utilities. We did that. That was the Albemarle project. We were thinking that project was going to be between $30,000 and $50,000. That project turned out to be $4,000. So the next project that we are working on right now is an additional, it's a bump out one that's going to start on Midway Manor.
So they're both in the city, so the county's going to get up.
You're listed in there. We were trying to work through the process, right? So we're trying to get it down and refine because one, we do paddle stand access in the city, we're working through that whole, and every single bus stop that we do has to have a site plan.
Right.
So that is a new requirement that we were not doing in the past, but it must be done now. So that slowed it down, and that's an added additional cost.
So does that mean that the dog leg that was created for Midway Manor is now a permanent route?
I hear what you just said.
So I feel like the dog leg that is created for that Midway Manor stop was a trial. Is it, that's permanent now?
That's baked in where our transportation plan.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
So that's the next one is coming, that's, I believe $85,000. That starts June 30th.
And that's which one are you talking about now?
Midway
Manor. Okay.
Still in the city. We have 3 sites in the county that are planned, check those, and that's kind of our next run, that we'll be starting.
Don't tell me you're out of money before you get to the county.
We got to get some money to make sure we're gonna get those done.
Okay.
We were running out of money, the city put in $250,000, so now we have $358, I think is remaining. Whatever the number is, 358, something along those lines. The 3 stops that are in the county, and then we have 2 additional stops in the city. That will exhaust that $358,000, and then because it's the timing. So when we asked for the money, we couldn't ask for money this time because we hadn't spent any of the money, and all the 324 was sitting out there. And we had asked the state, they were like, well, we haven't spent any of this. Now that those expenses are starting to hit, we will exhaust that pot of money. We'll be able to ask for money for the next funding cycle, 27. So 27, we're gonna come in big because we know what our expenses look like now, we'll have a better idea. So we'll be asking for a bigger ask. Selection day. We're really starting to hone in on locations, and we don't really want to put a shelter in every single bus stop. I know people really do want that, but we do not want that. We really want to put shelters in places where people use the service, and if it's an outbound stop towards the end of the line, that people are getting off primarily, I'm not going to put a shelter there because they're not getting off and standing, they're not getting off and going home. But that would be a waste of a place to put a shelter. So the analysis is being done, so we're looking at every single one of our stops. NDS and Zoe and the team, they're helping us. We got to figure out how to put in brand new stocks or the 2 stocks in the really new trial. That's also an unknown that we need to fund. So long way to saying we got a lot of shelters, we've got a lot of bus stops, not necessarily shelters, we need to put in place, whether it's temporary or permanent, to put in the new extension number 2. City and county are working on the processes to help us get that done. With the goal of probably having it done by the first of the year, so you actually offer the service.
And I thought for the process from the state, the general services, I thought we had 2 or 3 years to prove that we could make this work, and we've already used a year. Or somewhere close.
We're gonna be fine.
Okay, that's what I wanted you to say, that was the right answer.
The process now is really getting with the local jurisdictions to figure out their internal processes to make it happen, right? So, our process took a while to formulate. We have a process now, we're working it faster. That same scenario and process needs to happen at the county level, because we're really putting in new stuff and do that right away. We're confident we still gotta go through the site plan pieces, that doesn't change any of that. We're working through that, but I'm confident we'll be able to do some stuff.
In that time frame that Youngkin gave us.
Yeah, we'll get you.
Yeah, when we engaged the JRPT team, was obviously first because of that issue with general services, but when they hit the ground and said, all right, what are your priorities for shelters? Are there places in the city and in the county that we should be looking at? When we looked at the city side, they said, oh wait, there's a similar problem to what we have with general services where we don't have a clear path forward and going through a process of review. So they've been super helpful at helping us on the city side. And I think that's where it satisfies. Yeah, we have actually made some progress here and solved some problems at this point.
showing the, I don't know if people could ride by and look at Belmont Park. The stuff is beautiful. It's costly, but it's beautiful.
As long as it should be.
Absolutely.
I'm just
It will
saying.
make sense. It's beautiful. It's designed the way it's supposed to
So
be.
people like when
But it
I
also,
County.
it also highlights the fact that these bus stops take a lot of space. And we have
The ADA.
on-street parking is primarily where people park their cars in the city and the county. We're taking that space away to put in ADA compliant bus stops. We gotta be real careful about how much space we take. Our vehicles are 35 foot. We require 7 feet before to get in, 7 feet to get out, because you don't want people parking right on the edge, and then we'll do it if you don't have that space there. So you gotta get into the spot, be compliant, to get on the vehicle and be able to get out of the spot.
Or many of the ones in the county are not where people park. They're on VDOT roads, so we don't have to go down that way. Okay. But that's good, great information to have.
You also have some spots going in for developers who are providing some space.
That is right.
Absolutely, we
So we got-
have a lot of, because we've been requiring them in all of our developments. That it's
Developers
right-
are doing 2,
Mhm.
3, sorry. 3 of them, and they're pretty close to putting those in.
Great update.
Put it up outside. Is there some notion that each year this is gonna cost me a certain amount to send somebody to pick up trash or maintenance or vandalism or, like, what's the ongoing operating cost for each one?
I would love to say that we do a lot about it, and we're not designed to do that. I don't know you said it that. So we work with Public Works, in the city, to pick up trash. We're working, we need to have that kind of, that agreement with the county to do the same thing. I don't know who picks up your trash, but we're not designed to pick up the trash. We have 2 hospitals that we use when we have an emergency, that go out and dispatch, they will clean up the site. But that's not their primary job. So that's a larger discussion because you're asking us to put more spots in, for more ADA compliant bus stops that we put in, we'll be putting trash cans, people are gonna be sitting, they're gonna be trash. So we can see where we don't have trash cans, where the litter is emits. So we do want to put in trash cans, but that also adds another element of who's going to do that.
Yeah, and process.
To his point, like in the past, when we have determined where to put amenities, we haven't been thinking of the state of repair and how we maintain those amenities. We haven't really done consistent planning across our bus stops in the past. We haven't had a great inventory of what's at all of the bus stops. We're going through that work right now, and then we'll be setting up a rubric of how we decide what goes where in the future. We need to have some sort of rubric to understand that. Right now, we're kind of been flying blind with that.
I knew it had to be relevant based on litter, vandalism, and all that. And so I'm in this discussion, we had a great presentation from Acton Express.
Yeah.
They want to stop at that Crozet Park and Ride, and, JAUNT would be stopping there as well. And so we're on this big call with Albemarle County and the state and all this kind, and Kate's on the same call with that, right? And so then somebody said, well, who's gonna clean the bus out, take trash? Well, the transit agencies haul away the trash, and I was like, well, no. And so I turned to Kevin, I'm like, is Bobby Krickenberg gonna send a parks crew out there? Cause somebody has
We
to
avoid
think about
trash
these
cans
things.
in our parks.
Yeah.
We're not set up to do that. Like I said, we
To do
dispatch,
what?
we get an emergency call, we had that 3 this year. One, somebody with a
Well, like the
a
sidewalks
mattress,
and
a
the
bus
bus
stop,
stop
that was
itself.
it.
Don't make a
Right,
cloud of snow,
wires,
across the road.
nothing around there. Out of the blues foot, mattress showed up, so we had to go get it. Public Works didn't go get it, so our folks took a dirty mattress from there to just go.
The UVA students used to double over the bypass all the time, and
That's maybe where they got it from.
But now, that's a whole other subject, so we'll end with that. All right, any other questions? With that, I'm going to adjourn us to August the 28th, same place, same time. All right. Well, once the Virginia started recycling, doing a better job of recycling, a lot of that matters.